Hello, everyone. So I will be talking about some of my personal applications of low carbon lifestyle and some general points. Also share with you a philosophy that you can follow to build your own ways of adopting a low carbon lifestyle. But I'll also start with an introduction about Earth Day Network and about a few questions that I want to share with you all. So let me just share my screen. Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So, yes. So I represent the Earth Day Network, which is a global non-profit present in more than 190 countries. And this is what the world's largest movement. And you all know on April 22nd is when we commemorate Earth Day. And clearly, we are the last generation, as they say, who can change the course of climate change. And we are also the first generation that are facing the significant impacts of climate change. So Earth Day Network began in 1970, and today it engages over 50,000 organizations across the world in more than 190 countries, and over 1 billion people take part in Earth Day activities every year. So I'm going to talk to you about this image, which is the first time that we could see the planet from the space, and we could see as humanity that everything that happens on this planet is connected. Whatever we do as local actions, it has an impact globally, whether it is some kind of emissions, which is being done at Kolkata, because we share the same air, we share all the Earth's natural resources together as one planet. So there are three questions that we will try to address in this presentation, along with learning about low carbon lifestyle. But is, must we change? Do we really need to change? What is the need for that? Can we change? Can we still have hope? Are there right amount of technologies, right amount of action that is still giving us an opportunity to reverse the tide against climate change? And lastly, will we change? That's the biggest question that we have, right? So jumping into the first question, must we change? Do we really need to change? Is there something that is wrong, or is it just like climate change is just like an hoax, or is it something which is very real, which is very something which needs urgent action? So most of you are in school, you must have learned about this phenomena. As solar radiation fall on the atmosphere, most of this heat is actually absorbed by the Earth, which is very much required to keep our Earth in certain conditions, which life can exist in it. And then you know that most of this radiated heat goes back, and some of this heat is trapped through the atmosphere, and which again makes living conditions possible on our planet. So what is happening right now is we are spewing about 162 million tons of man-made global warming pollution into the shell of our atmosphere every 24 hours. So this is the amount of emissions that is happening every 24 hours, and we are dumping it as if this planet was some open sewer. When we stand outside and look up into the sky, we might have an opinion that the sky is an unlimited space. It gives a picture of something which is infinite, but we all know that this is this thin layer of air, which is the atmosphere, which is the layer of gases, and that's where most of these emissions get trapped. And because of that, what is happening is that the energy global warming pollution is now equivalent to over 600,000 atomic bombs per day, 365 days per year. That is the equivalent impact of the amount of emissions that the world emits every single day. So where is this emissions coming from? So these are the main activities that you can see, our transportation, industrial activities, the way we generate electricity through thermal power plants, industrial activity, agriculture, landfills, and everything that you can possibly think of. The largest source of global warming is through fossil fuels, and you can clearly see a trend how, as industrialization growth happened, the consumption of fossil fuels have increased, and it has gone up and up at a stalking rate every year. So this is how the temperature of the world has increased globally, and you can see this trend right after the industrial revolution. The temperature kept going up, and every year it has been recorded higher than what it was previous year. So in the last 19 of the last 20 hottest recorded listings have happened since 2002. And what is even shocking is that the hottest of all this has been the last 7 years. This last 7 years, they have this thing. Probably if this presentation is updated next year with 2021 stats, it will probably appear that 2021 also will add up to this list. So the global surface temperature, if you see the map right now, these are locations that you can see the complete red. Most of the locations are facing temperatures which are beyond average, and there is an increasing trend. In fact, in 2021, 4 such countries which recorded temperature above 50 degrees Celsius, which is unimaginable, 50 degrees Celsius. Even parts of Europe has recorded temperatures which is as high as 48.8 degrees Celsius. Even in the Arctic, the highest temperature that has been recorded is 38 degrees temperature in the Arctic. So it's really shocking, and it's a message from Mother Nature about what the conditions are happening. So if you imagine as human body temperature, 98 degrees Fahrenheit and 2 degrees rise, we refer to as fever, right? And what happens because of fever is that our systems in our body, there's a disbalance in this thing. So there is a dis-ease in our body, and we cannot function normally. And there is something which is similar happening to our planet right now. As the global warming is happening, the temperatures are rising. It creates a conditions which do not let the normal ecological process to work. And that is where it becomes an existential threat for us. So 93% of this extra heat, which is right now, this thing is actually trapped in our oceans. And because of that, what is happening is that because of the significant temperature, what happens is the air above the surface of these oceans. And you can see that half of this increase has happened in last 20 years. So this kind of abnormal rise, because of that, what is happening is the surface temperature of the air above the oceans is warmer, and it creates a perfect conditions for formation of tropical cyclones and hurricanes and different kind of weather events, extreme weather events, which cause a lot of damage to life and property. Like, for example, this is what happened earlier in August in 2021, where there were with Haiti was hit by 2 extreme weather events, which completely devastated the nation. First was a storm, and then was an earthquake. Similarly, in Philippines, there were over 15,000 people who were evacuated because of cyclone during the monsoons. And in India also, the western part was hit by a cyclone, and we know Amphan created so much devastation and so much havoc in this part of India. So what is ironical is most of the impacts of climate change that we can see right now in form of extreme weather events, the most impacted are the most vulnerable, the most poorest. And what's the irony is that these are the people who have least contribution to the problem. If you look at the entire carbon inequality that exists, it is about 10% of the people, rich people, who are responsible for a higher consumption, a much more higher consumption than the entire 50% of the people on the poor side of the spectrum, right? So this is very similar to how global income inequality exists, and this is reflected in the carbon listing also. So you can say that the world has consumed a lot of its carbon budget that exists, and we still do not have created a world which is fair, which is equal, and have been able to create a just world for the entire population. We still have problems to fight like poverty, hunger, and those things. And we have completely exhausted the carbon budget out of the greed that we all live with. So these extreme weather events also cause cause a lot of deaths and loss to property. For example, this is what happened in where 22 people died. This was in China, where more than 302 people died because of the floods. This was in Japan, where 1.4 million people had to be evacuated. And this is a similar story we see across the world. This is something which would happen once in 10 years, but it's become an annual phenomena because of the rise in extreme weather events. So there were over 600,000 people who had to be displaced because of floods in South Sudan. While we are seeing extreme weather events with extreme rainfalls, at the same time, there is a conditions of drought in similar regions. And that is happening because when there is such kind of rain patterns, which is not even rain, it just pours, the water just washes away the topsoil and it goes to sink. There is no way that the water can actually percolate to the ground, and it can be stored as groundwater, or it can be conserved because of the kind of the rain is so intense. So that gives to conditions which is drought. This is what happened in China. While one part of the country was under floods, there were parts of China which were facing drought. This also, climate change is a big threat to food security in parts across the world, because as temperature rises, the crop productivity goes down, the nutrient value of the crop goes down, and that's why it also emerges like a big food crisis. So hottest years are typically also when most fires are reported, forest fires across the world. These are some pictures from extreme forest fires across the world. So this is a graph that shows you exactly how the extreme weather events are increasing over the years. And as a result of this extreme weather events, so why is this happening, and what is the result of it? That the ice is kind of melting, and I'll show you this comparison of what it was in summer 1935 in Greenland, and this was what is there in 2013. I'll just go back and for you to compare this, and this is how the trend has been. This is how the decline has been. So where do you think all of this extra water, which is the melting ice, will go? It definitely ends up in our seas, and so in the Iceland, it's melting 4 times faster. In the Himalayas, it is reported that since 2000, the ice is melting at least 2 times faster than it was earlier. So all of this extra water from the Arctic losses actually ends up in our oceans and increases the sea level. So you can see this graph of the most vulnerable cities across the world, and you can see the first city, that is where we some of you might be here from, and I live in the city of Kolkata, which is the risk one in terms of most vulnerable city across the world because of sea level rise in terms of population. And this is what is, it's at number 4 in terms of asset. And we have another Indian city here, which is Mumbai, at number 5 in terms of asset risk. So climate change will cause huge loss to infrastructure in cities which are on the mostly coastal cities. And the estimated cost, at the end of this century is over $14.2 trillion worth of property that will be lost to coastal flooding. That is an estimate that is there. So there are smaller nations like Kiribati, which has purchased land in another countries to house climate refugees because those conditions in their particular country is not livable. They have to start moving people. They're planning for places where, because those places will be completely inundated with water and they will not be livable. So they are buying lands in other countries so that they can move people as climate refugees. So the US Department of Defense put this out in 2015, where they said that climate change is not just an abstract, it's a crisis for food. It will give rise to diseases. It will create a social unrest with a lot more refugees. It will create a political crisis, and it will create an economic crisis. So this is the map which shows the current conditions. These are all the blacks that you see are points which are not fit for inhabitation, uninhabitable zones. And this is what is expected by 2070. So if you look at the marks over India, about 80 to 90% of Indian territory is marked as inhabitable because of climate change. So that is how it is such a huge risk and an existential threat to humanity. So globally, over 10.3 million people were displaced by extreme weather events just between September 20 and February 21, which is 4 times more than by any conflict. So earlier, we would see that most of these kind of refugees and displaced would happen because of a political crisis or violence and everything. But that is not the case right now. More people are being displaced, and 4 times more people are being displaced because of extreme weather events than any kind of a war or violence situation. The world could see about 1 billion climate migrants, and this is published by the Lancet Countdown report in 2018. So world could expect over 1 billion climate migrants. And what will happen because of that is again a situation where there will be a lot of social unrest. Just imagine if a country like Bangladesh, which is so vulnerable, as living conditions start deteriorating, more people start moving towards the Indian side, there will be a condition which will be creating a lot of social conflicts, a political crisis, and violence will increase. Similarly, in a shorter scenario, we can see that over 100,000 people have actually moved out of Sundarbans in recent years, and they all live in the periphery of Kolkata. And because of that, when they live there, they would need basic facilities. They will be looking for jobs, and that's when there will be a crisis. So we cannot ignore this crisis. It's already happening, and this is why we need urgent action. So climate change is the biggest global health threat as well of the 28th century. We know right now we are going through a pandemic, and as human beings start expanding into the Earth's remaining wild places, what is happening is that over 5 new infectious diseases are emerging every year. And out of these 5 new diseases, 75% of these diseases, infectious diseases, are zoonotic in nature. Even COVID, the virus that created havoc in entire globe right now, and of course, most of your lives have been most significantly impacted because of the schools have been closed for such a long period. So this virus is also zoonotic in nature, and it's not just the new infections, but even because of the conditions like the tropical weather conditions, the rise in temperature, the cases of malaria, the cases of other kind of tropical diseases are increasing significantly. If you can relate to this, think something like dengue or malaria would be a very seasonal thing for a few months, right? But right now, it's throughout the year that you can see find cases of dengue, and there are so many mutations and so much, so many deaths which are being reported because of dengue, chikungunya, Zika virus, and other kind of viruses that are being reported. So the global economic impact of air pollution from fossil fuels, just from air pollution, is estimated at 2.9 trillion per year, and the cost for India is nearly about 150% of its health budget. And that's a shocking number, right? And if you look at air pollution related deaths, if you see the red mark over India and China, because these are countries which are most affected because of air pollution. In fact, more than 20 of the most polluted cities across the world is from India, and we must have read about the recent events in Delhi, where the court has to actually call upon the chief minister of Delhi and instruct them in very strict words that if they do not act on certain actions, then they will have to appoint someone to run the government, and that is how strict the court was in its notice. And this has become an annual thing. Every year, during the winters, we see that Delhi air pollution levels is such that the city is not livable. They have to. We have seen how lockdown happened because of COVID, but we are now seeing lockdowns in Delhi where the schools are shut not because of COVID but because of air pollution. So this is a reality. So worldwide, air pollution kills about 9 million people, and in India alone, the numbers in 2018 was about 1.7 million people. That many lives are lost. Now, this is way much more than what number of deaths COVID has reported cumulatively over the last year. So it also is a threat to the biodiversity, and what is expected is as early as the end of this century, 2100, we will lose 50% of all land species that exist completely. We will never be able to see them again. So that's how big this threat is. So this is where we come to the cost of carbon. We talked about different issues which is there, and it is create a political instability. It will create scarcity. It will rise to diseases. It will create refuges, drought conditions, food security, famines. It will completely transform the way we live, right? And why this is important to understand in terms of energy, this thing is because climate change and energy is very correlated, because most of this carbon sources required requirements, right? Whether it is for commute, whether it is for making a product, and you may think of your starting and reach to your home has gone through a lot of processes. All of those processes are energy consuming, and that energy comes from carbon sources, whether it is electricity, whether it is moving the products from one place to another through diesel powered vehicles and so on. So everything that you can see around yourself has consumed some form of energy to become the product that it is right now sitting on your table. So this is definitely one of the greatest threat to the global economy. And so I believe there is no doubt that we must change, and that is why we are discussing this talk today. And I'm very happy when we get to talk to a younger audience, because they understand this. Their stake is much more higher than some of the young adults or the elder people, because they understand that climate change, and globally youth have been leading this fight against climate change. But I don't want to leave you with all this anxiety around climate things. I would also talk about hope, and there are solutions, and solutions are moving at much faster rate as well. But is it enough is a question that is always there. But we do have solutions at hand to change and reverse the tide of climate change. For example, the green energy that we talk about in 2000. The projection was that the wind capacity will reach at 30 gigawatt by 2010. But what reality happened is that in 2020, it has exceeded a factor of 24x. So this is how fast it is moving. This is the graph of the wind energy. If you saw the rise in temperature graph, and if you see this wind energy graph, the world is moving very fast in adoption of renewables at a global scale. So the United Kingdom has set up a farm which generate more than 26 times as much electricity from renewables as from coal in 2020. So this is how fast the adoption of renewables is happening, and UK has committed for zero coal-fired electricity on 1/3 of days in 2020. So it's already there. It's not something which is going to be in future, but it's already happening. So wind capacity alone has the power to generate 40 times the energy that we need right now. So wind alone can power the entire world's energy. Similarly, in case of solar, the solar energy market will grow at 1 gigawatt is what was estimated in 2002. And what reality happened is the goal existed by 17x, and it's in 2020 it has exceeded by 132x. So that's how fast solar is moving. And in terms of India, I think with its leadership under Prime Minister Modi, India has not just been one of the major economies which has stood by its Paris commitment, but it has also shown the world with an institutional solution in form of setting up the World Solar Alliance with partnership with France, and now with UK, they have launched a very innovative solution called One Sun, One Grid, One World initiative, where there is a grid which will be set up, a solar grid which will pass through different countries, because one of the biggest challenge with solar energy is storage. And this will work such as that when there is the sun is shining in one part of the world and there is night in another part of the world, we can actually use the power of sun 24 hours to generate electricity and exchange that, so that we don't need storage capacity, and we all share that common grid. So I think it's a very, very expanded vision that India has taken up. So India definitely is taking a very leadership position in its fight for climate change. Of course, we have to do a lot more. There's a lot more things which needs to be done, but definitely look at things on paper and compare country to country what is happening. India definitely is taking a lead in terms of fight against climate change. So this is how the graph of solar installations look like, and this is how the cost of solar has gone down significantly. In fact, there has been some news reports that I was reading about, is that there are parts of solar plants where the bidding has happened and the cost of solar has actually gone down, what it would take to operate a thermal power plant. So definitely there is a push which is happening because of economic factors as well, and it's not just for the concern for environment. And that is where India has been able to take lead, because India's dependence on import of fossil fuels creates a deficit for India, and India chose to, under its new broad plan of Atmanirbhar Bharat, to create schemes which help India become more independent in its resources, at the same time stood by its commitment to the world in terms of fighting climate action. So a country like China installed 52 gigawatts of solar in 2020, which is more than any other country. And it's a huge this thing which we are seeing. So all of this gives us an hope that if we want, it is possible. We can actually shift to renewables much more faster because of the price competitive, the technology is improving, and we have that, if only we have that willpower to move towards renewables. So a city like Cape Town has signed power purchase agreement to completely give up on dirty coal fired electricity and switch to solar. So this is a very, very interesting graph that you will see. This is how this Chilean market has been moving in, and the kind of commitment that Chile as a country has made to move towards solar. So this is what looks like. So Chile has additional 27.5 gigawatts of solar projects under construction. And remember the previous slide, we saw that almost twice this capacity was installed by China alone in just 2020. So it's possible. Now, what is very interesting is that the amount of sunlight that the world receives every hour is enough to fill the world's energy need for the entire year in its current capacity. So definitely we have solutions that is available to us to change and move away from carbon-based energy sources. One of the challenges when it comes with renewables and when we talk about renewables is the storage capacity. And this is how the storage capacity technology is improving. And this is what is expected of increase in storage capacity by 2040. Another big shift that we are seeing is a move into electric vehicles. India earlier had come up with a very ambitious plan for 2030 in terms of electric vehicles. It still has a very ambitious plan where the entire public mobility across cities will start moving towards electric. And we are already seeing electric buses in our cities, and electric infrastructure is being ramped up. There are big companies like the Ola, which is coming up with a huge plant to manufacture two-wheelers for electric mobility. In smaller towns, if you go and see the amount of e-rickshaws that are flying right now is unimaginable. So we are already seeing a big shift towards electric mobility, and these General Motor has kind of announced that they will phase out. A lot of companies which have committed to phase out of diesel or other kind of carbon-based passenger vehicles as early as 2025. So this is how the global electric battery market is changing. So definitely we can change. We have solutions. The world has solutions. What we need is the will to change. And that is where the question is, what can we do? And this thing. So in terms of will also, we are seeing huge commitments from a lot of nations. So if you look at this list, you can also now add India, which is committed to a net zero target of 2070. In fact, Indian Railways have committed a target of going net zero by as early as 2030. India has also committed to raise its capacity of renewables to 500 gigawatt, which is like 50% of the installed capacity would be renewables by as early as 2030. So there is a lot being happening in terms of commitments. And so there is hope. Over 300 companies and have committed to made a commitment to move towards 100% renewables. There are companies in India also which have signed up for such kind of pledges, which is like RE100, EV100, which is moving towards 100% electric mobility. RE100 is moving towards renewables, 100% renewables. So there are some of these companies which have pledged to move towards set a net zero target for themselves. What we need is action, and that is where I would like to share with you some of the things on World Energy Conservation Day about adopting a low carbon lifestyle. These are things that we can do to make changes in ourselves, because the solution cannot to climate change is not just our leaders acting, coming up with better policies, but we also need to make certain lifestyle changes. And that is the only way we can address a crisis of this scale, because every activity, every day that we are living, the normal activities that we do as human beings, every activity has an impact on our planet. So we have to change our lifestyles and move towards a more sustainable lifestyle. And let me tell you, I recently delivered a TED talk in Lucknow, where I actually have shared my experience, and I will share that when it's approved and it's available on the TED official channel. So that in that I talk about my experience about how adopting a low carbon lifestyle or a more sustainable lifestyle has led me to discover so many things, which is has a positive impact on my physical and mental well-being. So there are things that I do which has helped me become more healthy physically, and there are things which have helped me become more happy because of my adoption of low carbon lifestyle. And I call this philosophy of low carbon lifestyle as something called, so we talked about off-grid GRID, which is disconnecting from fossil fuel based of energy. I also say that the world also needs to go off-grid, which is GREED, because that's what this kind of lifestyle looks like. I was also looking at the spiritual context of these things, and I came across a very interesting word in Jainism called aparigraha. And what aparigraha definitely means is that a certain kind of non-possession for things which you don't need. And what happens because of this kind of a mindset is that you eliminate a lot of clutter, a lot of chaos that is happening right now with us. If you see right now your current conditions, we are just living beyond our means in terms of information. There is over information that you are being exposed to. Our consumption patterns, we are consuming a lot more things that we actually need. This thing, and during the period of COVID, we actually got a glimpse of how if we move to just basics, and when resources were scrunched, we lived a life which was more based on needs, and we saw such beautiful things. We discovered how and what is more important to us. But right now, because of all the information, the massive marketing that happens, we get influenced, and we are just buying things mindlessly. And this is what is causing a lot of destruction to the planet. So in terms of electricity, every unit of electricity that we consume, it generates about a kilogram of CO2 into the atmosphere. And this is going to stay there for the next 50 years, create a problem that will be there even after probably we cease to exist. And that is how we are causing such a destruction to our planet. And mostly it's actually more than that, because this setup of a coal power plant is so inefficient that for every unit that we consume, it's actually 2 units being generated, because of one unit is almost lost in transmission. It's such an inefficient system. I remember meeting a professor who is from IIT Bombay, and he shared with me that he's an expert on this subject, and he shared with me that if there was someone as an external, some kind of an alien looking at our planet and looks at how we consume energy right now, where somewhere in some part the coal is being digged and then it's moving towards the shore, where it is being transported to another area, then it is being burnt with extremely low inefficiency, then it's the electricity is being generated at is put into a very high voltage, then it's transmitted through very long cables to hundreds and thousands of kilometers, and then someone somewhere just switches on the light, and they get electricity. So it's such an inefficient thing. And he talks about solar. Solar is like the new form of wireless electricity, where you just have a kind of a solar panel installed at your roof, and it generates electricity. So he calls this solar thing as a wireless electricity. That's modern. These things we have evolved as human being and adopted so many more efficient things. Then why are we just still stuck with this form of inefficient production of energy? So Professor Solanki also shared with me a principle that he calls AMG. That is something which I wanted to talk about in terms of adopting a low carbon lifestyle. So what happens in this is that solar, when we talk about people moving to solar, a lot of people can say that the cost is huge. Our energy thing is required. It will require a lot of upfront cost for us to move to solar. So he says that if we move with the same mindset of overconsumption and move to solar, it will never be sustainable as well. We have to first take the 2 steps before we move to solar, which is generate. First, we have to move towards avoid and minimize. So there are a lot of things that we can avoid and reduce our electricity consumption. This is just one example. Instead of playing, we all know that instead of spending a lot of on-screen time, if we go out and play, if instead of going to office in a car, if we just walk, we can have joy of walking as well and keep us healthy, or we cycle, we can stay healthy. At the same time, we reduce our carbon footprint, right? But these are activities that can help us avoid certain energy consumption. So if we can, in India, the labor cost is much more cheaper, and we can create huge employment for people if we start avoiding using washing machines and get employ someone to maybe wash our clothes. We generate employment as well, and we reduce our energy consumption as well. So these are just kind of examples for you to think about areas. You all must conduct this exercise and avoid areas where you can make avoid use of energy, and that is the first step that you take. If you consciously do this exercise, you will be able to eliminate as much as 20 to 30% of your energy consumption just simply by avoiding certain practices. And what you adopt instead of that will always have a positive benefit on your health and well-being. So the next step is to minimize. Technology is evolving. There are a lot of energy efficient devices. One of the super examples is LED, which is a phenomena which has happened globally. The next phenomena that is going to follow is going to be the fans, which are called BLDC fans, the brushless DC motor fans. Now, the current fan that you must be having there in your house right now or office right now is probably a 70-watt fan. But if you look at the BLDC fans, you can Google about them. You will find they are much more efficient. They run at a watt of like 28 watts, which is less than half of what it is right now. So that will save more than half of the electricity consumption which your fan does. And being in the country that we are right now, the fans are running almost throughout the year because winters are shrinking in terms of this thing. So it will also save a lot of electricity costs, and it will also reduce your overall power consumption. Similarly, being more mindful about simple things like when in offices where large number of workstations are there, a lot of these workstations are put into sleep mode and it stays there for maybe sometimes even the person turning up next day. If we just shut it off, the amount of impact that we can create with small actions cumulatively is going to be huge. The last thing is about moving towards solar, and this right now will help you save a lot of electricity bills as well, and it will sell commissions. I think this is one thing which you as students must ensure, is that advocate within your schools to move to solar, because as schools, as institutions, must adopt solar this thing. Otherwise, what is being taught in the books doesn't meet with action, then it's not learning for me, at least. So as a school student, you must reach out to your teachers and administration and request them to adopt such practices as adopting solar, installing a rainwater harvesting system, and installing a composting unit, and keeping all these measures. Everything that you learn right now, the first place to take action should be your schools. So this is what I wanted to share. And with that, I would say that do think about this metrics of avoid, minimize, and generate, and start adopting certain practices which can help you lower your carbon footprint. And trust me, it's going to make you more healthy, because when you start walking more, when you trust cycling more, when you fix your sleep cycle and you sleep early instead of exposing yourself to more screen time, and you wake up early in the morning, use the daylight to do your activities, you save on energy, and it already invokes a lifestyle which is more healthy. So when you connect yourself and live in sync with nature, if you try to adopt a life which is in sync with nature, it's not just the planet that benefits, but it also benefits you directly. So that's the message I would like to share, and happy if there is some time for a few questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. So the participants of this workshop, I am sure you must have a lot of questions for our Sir Ajaay Mittal here. So you want, you can one by one come up and ask the questions. Okay, so there is Manvi Jain. Manvi Jain, are you there?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Manvi Jain, you were asking about a question. The
Yes, sir.
what?
Sir, you were talking about zootonic diseases, or I didn't understand what zootonic diseases are. Can you
It's
once explain?
zoonotic. It's zoonotic.
Sorry,
Zoonotic.
sorry, sorry, sir.
Yeah, zoonotic diseases are diseases which arise from animals, like this COVID virus, which actually sourced from a bat, is what is it is believed. So any disease which originates from animals and then starts affecting human beings are known as zoonotic in nature.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions for us, sir? Okay. Sir, actually, I have a question myself. May I ask that?
Sure, sure, sure.
Okay, sir, the thing is, we understand that you said about schools and institutions implementing solar panels and like changing into alternative clean energy. But what about the other aspects, as in offices and households? Like, will it be possible for them to come up with an alternative energy option that is much more affordable? Because
Yeah, definitely. As we have and I met schools, students. Yes, yeah. So that Adanya, I was talking about that only because we have mostly school students here, and I heard that the least they must do as part of this workshop and engagement as an action point is to advocate within their schools to move towards solar. And definitely, what you said is right. Wherever feasible, the at household level, at office level, at industry level, and everywhere, we have to move towards renewable sources of energy. And but before we do that, we should not forget the two steps of avoid and minimize. Otherwise, what happens is that we will say that solar is so expensive because we are already living in a high capacity of our consumption. So we definitely have to first reduce our consumption, and that's where energy efficiency and being more mindful in our action comes in, about being a low carbon lifestyle, adopting a low carbon lifestyle comes this thing before we move to the final step of installing solar or any other form of energy.
okay, so my next question is that the students, like you said, can petition to their authorities for installing solar panels and stuff for the schools. Other than that, I mean, the students growing up, what they can do to actively make sure that solar panels become more affordable to the people in general, and make sure that people everywhere make an active change into the alternative green energy sector.
Definitely, I think that's a very good question. So once they have done something for their school, they must talk to their parents, to their uncle, and everyone there who might be running into offices and all, and request them to find out about solar and compare, invite people to suggest them to see how it is feasible to install solar within their offices or factories. So this is something which they should encourage, because this is what climate action is like. This is what you can do. You don't need to go out. You don't need to do anything. Start where you are right now, with your school, with your neighborhood, with your apartment complex, or with factories or offices of your parents and uncles and everyone that you know. So that is where you should act as a climate warrior and push for people around you to move towards renewables.
Okay, so last question from me. That is, you presented and you told us about companies that are taking up the whose production methods are much more energy efficient and less wasteful, and hence a lot less carbon emitting. Like, what exactly are these companies doing that is making them so much more energy efficient than their competitors in the market? Like, as in, how do we demarcate these? Like, as a consumers, when we go out to buy clothes, we would like to buy from brands that are being energy efficient. right? So, what exactly are these brands doing that is making them energy efficient and the others not?
Yeah, so I think this is a very good question in terms of as world move towards sustainability, how can we improve consumer education to adopt and buy from more sustainable brands, because that will encourage more brands towards moving towards more sustainable practices. And the example of companies that I shared with you, all of these companies have pledged for RE100. It's a pledge called Renewable 100, which is moving towards 100% renewables in a certain period of time. So definitely, all of these people are guided by experts to adopt certain practices which help them lower their energy consumption, use more energy efficient devices. Like for example, if they are using the old incandescent bulbs or anything, if they switch to LEDs, there is a huge shift in terms of the power consumption. We talked about the BLDC power. When buying an appliance, there is energy ratings which are available, which are certified by the government. If it's a 5-star rated appliance, the energy consumption is much more lower. The price might be a little higher, but at upfront. But if you make such a choice, you will see that in most cases, it's not just an environmental benefit, but also an economic benefit, because you're going to use that appliance for the next 15, 20 years, right? And if you buy an appliance which is not energy efficient, you will be consuming more electricity over the period of years. It may come at a little discount in terms of the upfront cost that you pay for the device. So these are just very, very fundamental things that you keep in mind when you are buying an appliance. First is, do you really need that appliance? And then the second question is, do I need that big an appliance? Now, a lot of people buy refrigerators which are like 4 doors, 5 doors, but do we really need that in a household which is a family household or 5 family? They're fancy, they're being promoted by brands, they look nice, they are brag worthy, but do we need them? That is the question, right? So that is one step. Can I buy a refrigerator of a smaller capacity if I really need that? What is the purpose? I need to keep some vegetables or whatever the purpose is. If that is, if you really need a refrigerator, buy a smaller capacity refrigerator. That is one step. And when you decide to buy one, you buy the highest star rated appliance, so that you save. It creates less in terms of emissions, and also save on your electricity bill over a period of time. So with terms of brands, there are certain marks, like a Rainbow Forest Alliance is one alliance which has logo on products which are more sustainable. And I think this is still going to grow. Maybe in next 10, 15 years, we will definitely see more ways where brands are marked with certification for sustainability. That gives us a picture that this brand is more sustainable in its operations and more ethical in its sourcing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So, the student participants, any one of you have any other questions? I guess.
Hello.
Oh, yes.
Hi, Saurav.
Hi, sir. Sir, I have two questions.
Yes.
One is it is actually carbon dioxide, which is actually raising the temperature and causing greenhouse effect gas. It's a greenhouse effect gas, and it causing the raise of the temperature of the earth. And not there is one technology developed by a company called Alstom, a French company. It actually captures the carbon dioxide, and it actually means it condenses the carbon dioxide, and and the liquid carbon dioxide goes sent below the ground. It's by 1 kilometer to 3 kilometers. And we as a country, we are having Paris Agreement and lots of issues, lots of things like that are happening. But where we actually put our efforts to just convert our all traditional facilities to just for renewables only. But why don't we use these things?
Yeah, so sort of what you're talking about is called CCS, which is called carbon capture and storage technologies. And these technologies are at a very, very development stage right now. It is not something which is extremely promising, and it can really help us absorb all the carbon that has been released. But let me just ask you one question. If you suppose walk into your bathroom and the tap is open, the water is flowing, there's a bucket which is full and the water is flowing, what do you start doing? Do you take a cloth and start wiping the floor, or do you put the tap off, right? I'm sure you're going to put the tap off, and that is how what is required. We need to put the tap off in terms of the dirty emissions that is happening, because if you talk about CCS technologies, you will still be emitting a huge amount of other gases which cause air pollution, and so it is not sustainable. So what is required is we move towards a more sustainable practices. The CCS technologies and everything can be helping us as a tool to absorb some of the extra carbon that is there in the atmosphere. They're very good, I'm not denying that. But to say that we continue on the path of destructive approach and mindless consumption that is right now going on, and find ways to reverse this impact of it, I think that will not be sustainable in my opinion, because it causes a lot more other problems that will happen because of this approach, and that we will realize in next 15 years or 20 years. So the most sustainable solution is to change our lifestyles and adopt more sustainable practices, and that will help the world more, is what I think.
Yeah, I'm not saying that just to avoid it completely. Just definitely we need, as we are approaching towards more sustainable resources, so we need to definitely move. But there will be something which will continue. But yeah, that way by carbon dioxide capturing, we will just means will somewhat we just try to limit it. That's it. And there's
Absolutely,
another question
absolutely.
I'm having. Yeah, another question I'm having. We still have mm, few other types of means energy generation ways. Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
We can also generate energy in other ways as well, but
Mhm.
which are also efficient. But why we are not means stressing on those? Like we can generate hydel power plant as well.
It's already
Uh,
happening, Saurav. So definitely,
it's
it is
happening
there.
with
And why we focused on the two sources of energy as solar and wind mostly, and of course there will be another source which we is still evolving, is the hydrogen technology. So those are also moving. I wanted to just show the way how this two technologies have moving, and they are such promising solutions for this thing. With hydro also there are certain environmental challenges that appear, not that there are none with in terms of installation of wind or instance of solar large capacities. But with hydro, it's a little more complicated. That's why we focused on mostly solar and uh, wind here.
So everyone will be wrapping. I'm really sorry to cut this short, but we'll be wrapping in 2 or 3 minutes now. The last question, this is from Rohandeep Shamanto. He says, "Sir, what can we do about the humongous amount of trees being consumed every year for the
hello.
production of paper?"
Ma'am, I can't hear you. Your voice is too faint.
Okay, can you guys hear me now? Sure. So
Yeah.
Rohandeep Shamanto asks, since there are campaigns and foundations that are already enacting the plant tree initiative, so what other options can we come up with that can totally foster such productions even without the need to cut trees?
So I didn't understand complete the question, but I think it is around what can we do to ensure that the we protect the trees first and more than planting more trees, which is already happening as well. So I think I completely agree with this thing. So definitely we need to do more about protecting the areas in terms of protecting the tree cover and all. So I'm working with the World Economic Forum's Youth Council, and they are launching a very interesting coalition, which is called India Trees Coalition in India. And this entire coalition is going to focus on efforts like this. And we had launched the challenge on Uplink. Uplink is an innovation platform by the World Economic Forum, and it invited all innovators in the sector to come up with areas that can help restore India's degraded land and also protect India's this thing. And we've got very, very interesting solutions and innovations this thing. I'll give you a few examples of organizations which are working in forest areas, where what the way that they work is that they peg and ecosystem services, the cost of ecosystem services, the services which are provided by nature right now are not completely free, right? The amount of air, the water, the fruits that we get, it's in a way it's for, but they try to put a cost to that and adopt measures so that they can pay the farmers and the local communities to protect the land, because in a way these local communities are dependent on a lot of resources from the forest for their survival. So bringing out a balance between how we live as human beings and interact with nature is one of the ways that to do it. And of course, there are other better technologies which are there to and the government policies also, which we advocate for. Like a lot of countries have given up as 30% of their land area will be marked as conservation areas. So these are ways which we can protect the existing tree cover.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And thank you all the participants for joining this webinar. And especially, sir, we can't thank you enough. Now we'll be leaving the breakout room. So you're allowed to leave one by one.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Now we have a small video that we would like to play. Thank you for being here with us at the presentation.
Electricity is something that is considered most important to survive in the competitive world today. Most of us spend our days in school, and I think I speak for all that most of us plan our schedule from daybreak. Stringent restriction on usage of electricity does not necessarily refer to restricted usage of electricity in lights and fans that costs us our efficiency at work in terms of time, but rather restricting its wastage, which is to say, rein in our bad habit of leaving the lights and fans running as we leave one room for the next. We can also restrict our usage of air conditioners and microwaves, instead opting for, say, coolers and food that is capable of being stored mostly at room temperature without decay, thus limiting the need to heat it up. But of course, we cannot function without our laptops and computers in the lockdown. But we can opt for indoor and outdoor games instead of video games and mobile games that demand an unsolicited usage of a few extra joules. Yes, energy is measured in joules, and that is all we think of while working out our physics and chemistry problems. But what about the environmental impact of these few extra joules? You see, energy in our current world is vastly dependent on thermal and coal-based power plants. The shift to solar and other renewable energy is still taking place. Of course, the government is facilitating the establishment of a more solar-based energy ecosystem by sponsoring solar lamps and regulating the investment in the renewable sector by those already engaged in the non-renewable ones. The usage of energy in a non-judicial fashion is causing the release of pollutants like carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, oxides of nitrogen and particulate matter. With such tiny particles floating in the atmosphere, the risk extends to those of size 2.5 micrometer. That is 2.5 into 10 to the power of -6 meters. And there is no way we can imagine the size. The smaller the size of the particulate matter, the deeper its reach into our lungs, and the denser the threat. The greenhouse gas effect is also emphasized in the process of indiscriminate use of electricity sourced from non-renewable sources. So, other than switching to LED lights, what can we do? Well, the easiest solution to imagine and the most critical one to actually implement is to achieve a shift into the renewable sector. Using solar lamps, fans, and choosing to use electricity generated by harnessing the wind, the tide, the molasses, and even the ionization that takes place in the salt water that can otherwise be difficult to use without treatment.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much to all of you for joining this session, and special to the speakers for making these presentations. All of you run important organizations, and your time is very, very valuable. So thank you so much for taking all this time. As a wrap up, what we could do is just hear from all of you, all the speakers, of final comments, thoughts that you have that you would like to share with the entire group that is here with us today. And also, if there are some thoughts, comments from the participants, we could take a few thoughts, comments. I mean, you may have lots of questions. I'm not sure if we will have time for those questions, but some thoughts, comments are always welcome. So if you can just sort of go around the table with the speakers and hear your thoughts. Arjun Bhai, do you want to go first? Right, my bad. Piyush, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it was very nice, very interactive session that I had. There were quite a few students who were extremely participative. So it's always great to be talking to a bunch of motivated young chaps, and I'm really looking forward to what we can do. It's a great initiative by SwitchON to just spread more awareness about energy conservation. It's a great day wherein each of us can group together and just figure out how we can make our lives much more meaningful and much more sustainable. So thank you, SwitchON, and I really thank all the participation from the students who joined in.
Great. It's always nice to reach out to and speak to all of these budding young minds. I mean, they know so much more than what we've often known. Chandrasekhar Bhai, Mr. Chandrasekhar Bhatt, if you would like to come in and also share your thoughts with everyone, the entire group.
Thank you, Vinay. I mean, I'm so happy that I got to make it here today. Didn't realize how time flew by. I mean, I was really enjoying talking to the kids, and I was really surprised that I had to, get the conversation to a close so soon. I would really love to keep this conversation moving forward. There were quite a few questions which I was not able to address due to lack of time. So I really invite everybody here to reach out to me. Feel free to reach out to me even after our workshop, and I'll be happy to address your questions and the more young champions we have joining this mission, the better off we will all be.
Absolutely. I'm so kind of you to make yourself available even after even after the chat. We will, of course, hope to keep reaching out to you for more with the wealth of information that you have, and keep sharing back. Ajada, would you like to come in, share your thoughts?
Thank you, Vineta. Thank you, SwitchON team, for this opportunity. Earth and Work has always worked together as partner with your organization, and we really thank you for inviting us to be part of this. A lot of the schools that I saw, I've been interacted with Earth Day, and they commemorate Earth Day. So definitely my first message is to ensure that all of you sitting there, do something for Earth Day on April 22nd next year to commemorate this day and expand on the environmental movement, because that's what is required right now to reach out to more people beyond us who are already having some level of awareness, to widen this outreach for environment and sustainability. And my last message would be, all of you do take one pledge, one action point, identify one action point with all the learnings that you have with the different sessions, one action point, and adopt that one action point to pursue it as more towards moving towards a low carbon lifestyle, adopting a more sustainable lifestyle. And trust me, it helps you, as I said, being more adopting sustainability makes you more healthier and happier, and that's what it works. So do adopt these practices and keep doing more of it. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I think it's always, thanks Ajada, and thanks for that message. It's always great to have one point to start with, and of course, there's a lot to follow. Mananda, if you would like to come in, share one of your messages with the entire group.
Thank you so much for organizing this. It was the first time I got to speak with so many young minds. As somebody mentioned, these are young champions who are going to be saving the world. Today, even in climate change conferences like COP26, the people who are deliberating on it are 50, 60-year-olds who will make promises on behalf of us, but it's us who are supposed to do the work and save our planet for these young champions. So I think, as I also said during our session, like, this is the closest you get to being a superhero. So from this point onwards, I think everyone should look into the renewable industry and how you can do your bit to save the environment and also make money at the same time. So that's the great part about being in this space. So that's my message to everyone. Keep at it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for that message. Arjun Bhai, if you can hear me, I can see you back.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah,
so, hi, Vinay.
Hi, Arjuna. One final message from you to the entire group.
A simple message: join the climate fight. We have 30 years to get to net zero. There are many interesting opportunities available. This is not only the most meaningful place to spend your time and build a career, but also the biggest wealth creation opportunity that you will ever have in your lifetime is to work on climate. This is not a fashion. It is not a fad. It is here to stay. Climate action is here to stay until we get to net zero over the next 30 years at least, and then beyond, to sustain and maintain our lifestyles. So very meaningful and impactful area with a lot of business opportunity for all of us. Great career opportunities, and of course, getting to work with people like Vinay and some of the speakers that you heard today. So I hope you all consider that as a serious career option, and dropped a little link to entertain ourselves with a little rap song that I made on the climate fight as well.
Oh, nice. It's good to know you've created a rap song on that. Fantastic. So thank you so much. And I think what we've tried to do in this session is we've had roughly about 10, we've invited about 10 students from different schools from Bengal, Jharkhand, and mostly they've been about 4 or 5. Some have had, of course, more. But the idea is to take this message that all of you have given to a larger group, to their schools, to their colleges, and it's extremely important, as all of you mentioned. I mean, this is we have to there's an urgent need for all of us to take action around this. So thank you so much. And I think there is, some people have been asking if there are links to give feedback. We will surely be getting back to all of the participants with to collect feedback, to also see what you would like to see next and how would you like to participate in such programs and workshops. So we will surely be getting back. And it's a special date. I mean, energy conservation, it's very, very close to my heart. I've, of course, worked in the energy sector for many years. But one thing that I truly believe in is that energy conservation, it can start with all of us in our homes, in our schools. It's the lowest hanging fruit. There's no better way for us to consider being part of a climate warrior or taking part in the climate action than look at energy conservation. So if there is anyone questions or questions, really, any thoughts or comments, questions, I don't think we'll have the time, but any thoughts, comments, otherwise I'm sure you will there will be opportunities to share some of that. But no, I'm seeing in the chat box, I'm seeing there has been, it's been a wonderful conversation. People are asking about feedback links. We'll surely get back to you with feedback links, but we can maybe have, if anyone wants to also unmute and share something, feel free to do that. Otherwise, we will do a quick round of photography session. I'll request everyone to switch on their cameras and then we can do a quick, that's the best we can do in a virtual setting. So I'll request everyone to switch on your cameras. And once we've done that, it'll be nice to just have a quick photo session as memory's sake. Right, all of you looking lovely. Yeah, it's great to see the messages and comments coming out that it's been a very interesting, meaningful presentation. There were nice presentations. That's all nice to hear from all of you. Thank you so much. It's a great compliment to all our. So on the count of ask, but on the count of 5, I'm going to start taking photographs. I'll move from screen to screen and take some photographs. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll put your best smiles on. Lovely, all of you looking great. Few more photographs, and then I think we should be pretty much done. Fantastic. Just keep smiling. Put those. Keep bearing that smile. Yeah, all of you looking. It's lovely to see all of you. These beautiful faces. All of that smile. Just give. I think we should pretty much be done by now. All right, fantastic. Thank you so much. It was. Thank you so much especially to all the students. Mostly, I think it's been schools and some college students, of course. Lovely interacting. I'm sure the speakers have had a lovely interaction with all of you. And thank you so much to all the speakers for taking out the time, making the time in the middle of the week or at the start of the week, Tuesday, to do this. Thank you so much, and tada, bye-bye to everyone. Thank you. Take care.